Stephen was a quiet young man in his early 20s, with a shy demeanor and a deep sense of insecurity. He had always struggled to express himself, especially in social situations. The thought of speaking up in a group made his heart race and his palms sweat. Yet, Stephen had a dream: to learn English. He believed it would help him grow, find better opportunities, and maybe even make new friends. One day, he decided to join an English language class at a nearby institute. When he first entered the classroom, he was overwhelmed. The room was filled with students, most of them around his age, chatting and laughing comfortably. Stephen quietly chose a seat in the back corner, hoping to go unnoticed. The class began, and the teacher introduced herself with a warm smile. She encouraged everyone to introduce themselves in English. Stephen froze as the other students confidently spoke their names, hobbies, and goals. When it was his turn, he barely managed to whisper, "My name is Stephen. I want to learn English." His voice was so soft that the teacher had to ask him to repeat it. Embarrassed, he sank deeper into his chair. Among the students was a girl named Emily. She was 2 years older than Stephen, with a cheerful and outgoing personality. Emily noticed Stephen's nervousness and decided to reach out to him. During the break, she approached him with a friendly smile. "Hi, Stephen, right?" she said. "I'm Emily. You're new here, aren't you?" Stephen nodded, avoiding eye contact. "Why, yes," he stammered. Emily didn't seem to mind his shyness. "I know it can be scary at first, but don't worry. Everyone here is really nice. You'll get the hang of it soon." Stephen managed a small smile. "Thanks." Over the next few weeks, Emily made an effort to include Stephen in conversations and group activities. She would sit near him in class and ask for his opinion, even if he was hesitant to share. Slowly but surely, Stephen began to feel a little more comfortable. One day, after class, Emily turned to him and said, "Hey, do you have plans for dinner? There's this cozy little restaurant nearby. I thought maybe we could grab a bite together." Stephen was caught off guard. No one had ever invited him out before, especially not someone as confident and kind as Emily. He hesitated, but eventually nodded. "Sure, I guess." That evening at the restaurant, Emily talked about her life, her love for books, her dreams of traveling, and her goal to become fluent in English. Stephen listened intently, feeling a strange sense of ease in her presence. When she asked about him, he surprised himself by opening up a little. He told her about his struggles with confidence and his hopes for the future. "You know," Emily said, her eyes kind, "you're a lot braver than you think. Coming here, joining the class, and sticking with it. It takes courage." Stephen blushed, unsure how to respond. But her words stayed with him. As the months passed, their friendship grew. Emily continued to encourage Stephen, helping him practice speaking and praising his progress. She had a way of making him feel seen and valued, something he hadn't experienced before. Little by little, Stephen found himself changing. He started participating more in class, raising his hand to answer questions, and even cracking small jokes with the other students. But there was something else, too, an unfamiliar but wonderful feeling he couldn't ignore. Stephen was starting to like Emily. Part 2. A growing connection. As Stephen's confidence grew, so did his feelings for Emily. He found himself looking forward to her cheerful greetings before class, the moments they shared practicing English, and the way she always seemed to believe in him. Emily had become more than just a friend. She was his inspiration. But Stephen was still hesitant. Every time he thought about sharing his feelings, doubt crept in. Why would someone like her be interested in someone like me? He wondered. One evening after class, Emily approached him as they were packing up their books. "Hey, Stephen, do you have time to grab coffee? I wanted to talk to you about something." Stephen's heart skipped a beat. "Sure," he said, trying to keep his voice steady. They walked to a nearby cafe and found a quiet corner. Emily ordered her usual, an iced latte, and Stephen nervously asked for tea. As they sat down, Emily leaned forward, her expression serious yet kind. "You've really improved a lot these past months, Stephen," she began. "You're not the same shy guy who walked into class on the first day." Stephen smiled, unsure where this was going. "Thanks. I couldn't have done it without your help." Emily shook her head. "You did it, Stephen. I just gave you a little nudge. But there's something else I've noticed." Stephen felt his stomach tighten. "What's that?" Emily hesitated for a moment, then said, "I think you're holding yourself back. You've come so far, but I feel like there's something you're still afraid of. Am I wrong?" Stephen looked down at his cup, the tea swirling as he stirred it with a spoon. "Igusiust. I don't know how to believe in myself sometimes." Emily reached across the table and placed her hand over his. "Stephen, you have so much potential. You just need to trust yourself. And you don't have to do it alone. I'm here for you." Her words gave Stephen a strange sense of courage. He looked up, meeting her gaze. "Emily, there's something I've been wanting to tell you," he said, his voice trembling slightly. Emily tilted her head, her eyes soft with curiosity. "What is it?" Stephen hesitated, then took a deep breath. I really like you. More than just a friend. You've made such a difference in my life, and I can't imagine not having you around." Emily's eyes widened in surprise, and for a moment, Stephen feared he had made a mistake. But then, a smile spread across her face. "Stephen," she said softly, "you're one of the most genuine people I've ever met. I like you too. I wasn't sure if you felt the same, so I didn't say anything." Relief and joy washed over Stephen like a wave. "Really?" he asked, almost unable to believe his ears. Emily laughed lightly. "Yes, really. But let's take it one step at a time, okay? I think we have something special here, and I don't want to rush it." Stephen nodded, his heart lighter than it had been in years. "That sounds perfect." From that day on, their bond grew even stronger. They continued attending classes together, but now their study sessions were filled with laughter and stolen glances. Stephen still had a lot to learn about English, about himself, and about love, but for the first time in his life, he felt like he wasn't facing it alone. Stephen and Emily's relationship continued to grow, each moment strengthening the bond between them. Stephen's confidence had blossomed, not just in his English, but in every aspect of his life. With Emily by his side, he had started applying for jobs that once seemed out of reach, meeting new people, and even helping other classmates in their studies. Emily, too, found her life enriched by Stephen's presence. His quiet determination inspired her, and she admired the way he had overcome his insecurities. They became a team, encouraging and uplifting each other as they navigated their individual journeys. After a year of classes, Stephen finally graduated from the language program, his English now fluent and natural. On the day of the graduation celebration, he stood in front of the entire class and gave a short speech, something he would have never dared to do before meeting Emily. "Learning English has been a journey, but the greatest lesson I've learned here is about connection," he said, his voice steady and clear. "I wouldn't have made it this far without the incredible people I've met, especially Emily." The room erupted in applause, and Emily's eyes glistened with pride. That evening, Stephen invited Emily for a walk along the riverside. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. As they walked, Stephen stopped and turned to her. "Emily," he said, his voice trembling slightly, "you've changed my life in ways I never thought possible. I want to spend the rest of my life making you as happy as you've made me. Will you marry me?" Emily gasped, her eyes widening in surprise. Then a smile spread across her face, and she nodded. "Yes, Stephen, of course I will." Their engagement marked the beginning of a new chapter in their story. They spent the next few months planning their wedding, a simple but beautiful ceremony surrounded by friends and family. On their wedding day, Stephen stood at the altar, his heart full of gratitude and love as Emily walked down the aisle. As they exchanged vows, Stephen couldn't help but marvel at how far they had come. From the shy, insecure boy in the corner of the classroom to the man standing beside the love of his life. He felt like he had stepped into a dream. After their honeymoon, Stephen and Emily began settling into married life. They were happy, their days filled with laughter and shared dreams. But one day, something unusual happened that neither of them could explain. It started with a package that arrived at their doorstep, addressed to Stephen with no return address. Inside was an old, leather-bound journal. The pages were filled with writing in an unfamiliar language, and the last page bore a strange, cryptic message. "This is where your story truly begins." Stephen and Emily stared at the journal, a sense of curiosity and unease washing over them. What did it mean? Who had sent it? And why did Stephen feel like he had seen that journal before? To be concluded in part 2.